Welcome to Beyond the Press Release, a production with Gorcon, in which we take the time to speak with small cap executives after they put out important news. Guys, if you believe in the future of nuclear energy and what it's going to do for the world's critical energy problems, then you're going to love this interview with Azincourt Energy, trades in Canada under AAZ. For our friends in the US, AZURF. The company is developing critical alternative energy projects through two core projects in the Athabasca Basin, Saskatchewan, where they're exploring for uranium. And either one of these projects are capable of delivering Canada's next uranium discovery. And the company's got more than $10 million in cash in the bank to potentially make that happen. So they're not just talking empty platitudes here. And the timing is perfect because of the bull uranium market right now, because we're experiencing, like I said, a global energy crisis that's actually surpasses the oil crisis of the 1970s. We've all seen it. We know what's going on in Europe. We know what Russia's doing. We know what Saudi Arabia is doing. It's a crisis. Nuclear energy is now often cited as the way to reduce that dependence on fossil fuel dependency and those non-friendly countries that have control over most of that. The internal agency, the Internal Energy Agency, or the IEA, came out their outlook and they said nuclear capacity worldwide is increasing with approximately 50 reactors under construction right now. And contrary to some belief out there, it still remains one of the safest forms of electricity generation. Alex, welcome back, my friend. We got some news to talk about.
Yeah, George, thanks for having me. It's been quiet, but I'm happy to get people up to date of what's happening.
Yeah, you've been in stealth mode. You've put out some news, but before we talk about that news, I want to talk to you about the macro uranium market. In terms of demand, price, it's stabilized here in the $50 per pound range, give or take over the last 6 months. What's the macro picture looking like? Are you as bullish today as you've been bullish in other interviews we've done?
Yeah, no, 100%. I think what we've experienced here is not necessarily in the nuclear space or the uranium space, but more of a trickle down from broad market issues. So, we for the longest time, the uranium space sort of was okay. We weren't being we weren't caught in the downslide, but eventually, as the year progressed in 2022, nuclear stocks, nuclear everything kind of just fell off the cliff as well. So,
well, you became a victim of your own success. Sorry to interrupt you there, but stock was remaining high in the nuclear space, and people had to get some cash, unfortunately, because what's going around the world. So you get caught in the downdraft, but that's not because of your fundamentals or the industry's fundamentals.
Absolutely, everything that drove the market, say back into the latter half of 2021, for example, all of that's still relevant. You speak to it in your intro. You spoke to it. The builds in the pipeline, the projected deficits in the supply chain. All of that's very real, and it's still on the table. So yeah. When the market stabilize, I think a little bit, and they're beginning to, I think, I think looking ahead, 2023 will be a good year for uranium and uranium stocks.
Uranium and nuclear has got a lot of attention in Q3. I think it's died down a little bit now because energy prices have come down a little bit. But do you think that once we see some real issues in Europe, because the cold winter hasn't set in yet, do you expect that conversation to spark back up?
Yeah.
Pardon the pun, but do you expect to spark back up?
Yeah, no, I do. I mean, Germany's been talking about it. Japan is ramping things back up after Fukushima. There'll be more and more news like that. I mean, California put out some news regarding funding of bringing things back online and putting more cash into the development of nuclear energy. These are good things for the space, and it all adds up. I mean, when you put it all together, that list is long, and that supply deficit, which has been known for some time, remains. And if anything, it's going to continue unless we make new discoveries. So
that leads into the news release, which is your flagship, East Preston. You've received drill permits, and that's your uranium project again in the Athabasca Basin of Saskatchewan. Typically, receiving drill permits isn't that big of a deal to talk about, but in this case, it's a real milestone because you obviously conclude successful discussions with First Nations. You got everything necessary to get this done. Let's talk about the importance of getting to the drill permit stage, and then let's talk about what you're going to do.
Sure. This year permits took a little while. We got them, and we're ready to roll. And we've spent years at East Preston. This is really our second big drill program, which is really nice. We've been working steadily to have a really good working relationship with CRDN, the group, the First Nations group in the area, and we've had some good success. We've developed our relationships. We're on good terms. We're working together, which is really the future of all exploration work in the basin. And we're happy to be, at the forefront of that with CRDN, and we're moving forward. So we got our approvals, and we got our permits, and now we're ready to go. Over the next month, we'll be developing the road into our camp. That takes several weeks of building and working, and then we hope to be drilling by, say, mid-January at the latest.
And I want to give everyone some context, because I think more and more people are looking at uranium companies. I'm going to take an excerpt from one of your quotes where you said, last year for the first time, we were able to delineate substantial zones, some of it almost 200 meters wide, and hit some elevated zones of uranium enrichment. Mm-hmm. And you're hopeful that'll continue and get you closer to impactful discovery. Right. How good was last year, and the drilling you're going to be doing this year? What's it going to do to further that?
Yeah, it's a great question, because there's different interpretations of good, right? Most retail investors say, well, you didn't hit anything substantial, so it's a failure. But if you know the game, and you know what we're doing, and if you understand uranium exploration, everything we've done so far has moved the project forward. It's why we've been able to raise money, and why with the last two out of the last 3 years, we've raised cash while the drills were in the ground. So it's not like anybody was waiting to see what the drill results were going to be. They were seeing in real time what we were doing, and what we were reporting, and it's positive. Look, in order to find impactful discovery, impactful uranium deposit, you need to run into alteration zones. And let's just say that is the easiest way to do it. If you're looking outside of those zones, you may or may not find something. One thing you need to do is look at alteration zones. Now, we have 1,700 meters of alteration zones. A couple of these zones may be connected. Some of them are quite thick, as you mentioned, up to 200 meters wide. That's hematite that we're drilling through. Hematite alteration, complex alteration, and then we start to get into these clays. The clays are typically a little closer to that bullseye. So you got your clays, and then you got your hematite above that. So we're starting to get into the clays now. We want to continue to drill into these hot spots. And I mean, look at our friends over at Fission 3.0 and what they've been able to do. They hit a pretty high CPS count in a hole. They've been drilling that project for years. I think patience is required in this game. This is our second big drill program, and we're getting closer. And as long as we continue to move closer, vector towards that discovery, it's positive. Sometimes the drill results aren't what people want to hear, but from a technical perspective, everything we've done is push the project forward, and we're excited. We think we're onto something.
Yeah, contrary to popular belief, when people are watching movies or shows, George and Alex don't pray that this drill will drill right into the center of this big fat discovery. We all jump up and down, we hug our wives, we're all rich. It doesn't happen that way. It's incremental, right? You got to get closer and closer and closer. But you're pretty confident that so far you've been successful at those incremental steps, right?
I mean, basically last year, the takeaway was we knew that there was uranium bearing fluids at one point on the property. Last year, we were able to identify uranium enrichment, that these fluids were in the alteration zones. So that's even better. Now we're getting closer. That's the takeaway from last year, and we're getting close. It may or may not happen this year. I'd love to see it happen. We just want to make sure that we are moving the project forward. That's the mandate. That's what we're doing. We're putting our money in the ground. We're even in a bad market. I mean, we're going to try to be as aggressive as we were last year.
So what's the ETA, Alex? Now you've got the permits. Yeah. When can you start? And then what is the cadence? I'm not going to ask for specifics, obviously, but ballpark, what's the cadence of drilling and results, and when this round is done and completed?
Yeah. So right now, over the next several weeks, the road prep and camp prep will begin. That's a good 3, 4, 5-week process. That'll get us into early January. We hope to have the drills mowed and on site by the 15th of January, and drilling begins. And then we'll drill January, February into March, perhaps into late March if we're lucky, if spring holds off. Spring has been coming earlier every year. And so that's always a concern. Anybody talking about climate change, we're in some, you can see it in the Athabasca with the early onset of spring now. Whether or not that, we can, there's a whole other debate as to why that's occurring, but let's leave that alone.
Well, hopefully you can help that happen, right? With
Yeah.
clean nuclear energy at the end.
Yeah.
By the way, I'm glad you brought that up because people are probably thinking mid-January, Saskatchewan, who's going to get anything done there? It's going to be so cold, but you need the cold ground, right? You need the
that's
frozen ground to
just makes it easier to cross lakes, rivers, streams. Obviously and the other side of it is in the local communities use the area in the warmer months. They're hunting and trapping and fishing and things like that. And you want to try to keep yourselves make a less of a footprint and interfere with activities. So we do it in the winter, and that's the best time.
So safe to assume that drill results will start rolling out, early February, and then, on or just going to wait till one big batch at the very end, put out one big batch.
That's listen, if we run into a big giant swath of something yellow in the core, we'll probably make that public before we get, we're pretty careful. We're pretty conservative.
How good does it feel, especially with what's going on in the global economy today? Companies without cash are just getting put through the ringer. How good does it feel that as of last year, as of your last financials, you've got $10 million plus of cash in the bank? How big of a catbird seed is that? And deploy, knowing that you can deploy it and you've got the resources. Yeah,
no, it's listen, specifically for Azincourt, we're an anomaly in that sense. We haven't hit the big drill hole, yet we have enormous institutional support. We're very thankful for that. They're allowing us to have the cash to explore what we think is a great project. Obviously, with 25 plus funds in the deal, they also feel that way. So we're thankful. But yeah, it's a great feeling. I mean, that's the craziness in this business. Here we are trading at what, a 12 and a half, 13 million market cap, and we've
basically cash.
Yeah. So there's value locked up, being sort of stepped on at the moment. We get any bump in sentiment, we're 25, 30% up just on that, our market cap. But we're going to continue to do what we do and hopefully use the funds in the right way and drill into something impactful. As long as we move this thing forward, we're confident that there is discovery to be made at East Preston. All the indicators are there. Everything keeps moving in the right direction. And patience is the name of the game.
I'm going to make a note of that for my guys to clip that. Confident on discovery. Hey, staying with the cash theme for a second.
Yeah.
You announced an LOI a couple months ago, and it's a letter of intent, so we'll kind of let that play out. But I read a little more into that, which is, given the fact that you've got this massive cash balance, this massive pile, is it a buyer's market out there? Because there must be a lot of companies. Unfortunately, a lot of small caps are suffering, just like Tesla and Facebook and Google are suffering, by the way. They're all down 50, 60, 70%. So This is just a small cap problem. But is it fair to say that you might have a little more bargaining power, go to George Uranium and say, hey, George, you got a great project there, but you're running out of cash and your prospects don't look good.
Yeah.
Let's do a deal.
Yeah, well, okay. So you're right. It is a bit of a buyer's market. Anytime the markets turn, people look at ways to consolidate portfolios, monetize projects, do what they can to continue to keep the beast moving. So we've been looking. There has been a steady stream of projects sort of that have come our way. We would be remiss if we didn't kick the tires and take a peek under the hood of all of those.
Got to.
Yeah, because I would hate to pass on something that turns out to be a great project. We don't need it. We're happy with what we have. But again, if there's value that crosses the desk, we are in a situation where we can act on it.
Well, look, it's like a great hockey team or football team, take what you will.
Yeah.
You might be a strong team, but if there are assets out there, if there's a weak team who's not going to make the playoffs and needs to unload a couple of great players, you're going to look for sure, right? And you've got, the great thing is you've got the resource to take advantage of it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And you know, so we're again, we're not making deals just to make deals. We are trying to
Of
be
course.
strategic. We're being very picky.
Yeah, you're definitely not going to throw out that you're not going to throw out that money and waste it. That's
No,
for sure.
correct.
Um, Hatchet Lake.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that for a second.
Sure.
You've been a little bit quiet on that. What's the update on Hatchet Lake?
Yeah, well, we put out, we expected to be drilling there in the fall. Perhaps we were too optimistic. I'll give you an example. The First Nations relationship, the local community relationship at East Preston has been ongoing since I got on board with Azincourt in 2017. Um, no one has really worked hatchet in that area for some time. We haven't, obviously, but even the prior operators hadn't done much there in many years. So it's an entirely new process. The consultation process, engagement with local communities starts from scratch. And that's been lengthier than we were perhaps aware of, unfortunately, but you know, we had the cash put aside. We were gung-ho to get in and start drilling hatchet. That process, consultation process, is going to take some time. We really like the project. We're very optimistic that we're going to get there soon and cross all these bridges. But certainly, it's nice to have East Preston all queued up and ready to go while we work through the Hatchet Lake stuff.
And East Preston also demonstrates your ability to get deals done with the First Nations. That's an indication that you've already done it.
Yeah, yeah. No, listen, it's wanting to get something done. That's the main thing. I mean, we realize the way of the partnerships have to work, and we're happy to make that happen. And again, it's an ongoing process, but we're going to follow all protocols, and we're going to do what we need to do to get Hatchet up and running.
Last question for you, only because it came up in news the last couple of days, and
Okay.
I don't know even if a lot of people have taken note, but it's been headlines everywhere. It's been on TV. This, breakthrough, this energy breakthrough with fusion technology, and how it could solve all the world's problems theoretically when it comes to energy. What are your thoughts on it, and how far away are we from that becoming a reality?
Right.
Or could that put Azincourt Energy out of business tomorrow? And I'm saying that tongue in cheek.
Yeah, no. I think you hit the nail on the head as you quietly threw out the qualifier there. Potentially is really the word here. Yeah, it's great. It's great. All things start from such discovery. It's going to take a long time to harness this, to figure it out, to make it something that can be done in plural. And across different places, and it's going to take a while, but it is certainly interesting. And listen, I know a guy involved with lasers. It's part of his work. He's an optical engineer, and he's all over this. So yeah, let's see where it goes. I don't think we're going to. It's not going to threaten the nuclear space anytime soon.
Yeah, my sons and I were laughing the other day. We're just talking about, we're doing this fake, press conference, like, hey, any risk to that? Well, yeah, if we get it wrong, the entire planet might explode.
Right.
Because this is us creating energy, which means if it goes wrong,
let's not put the cart ahead of the horse here, right? We don't want to put the cart ahead of the horse, or else you're going to be trampled by horseshoes here. Let's be careful. But look, it's interesting. It's certainly great to see this type of science fiction come true. So we're keeping an eye on it. But listen, we're focused on exploration. We're focused on discovery. That's what we're here to do. And East Preston is getting better every time we get on the ground. I expect the same thing to happen this year. And look, it happens. Look at the guys at Fission. I'm not suggesting that we're going to do what they did, but they certainly woke up with a great hole, and we're all in the same area. These holes exist. We have 25,000 hectares. We've got 35 kilometers of trend to drill. We're just getting started. I always say this: baseball's 9 innings. We're in the second inning here with our second big drill program. We got a long way to go and lots of ground to cover, and everything looks good.
Yeah, and just quickly for people who may be new to the story, the Athabasca Basin is the neighborhood you want to be in. Absolutely. when you're exploring for uranium.
Right, absolutely. I mean, the average world grade is 0.2%, and Athabasca discovery and Athabasca mineralization routinely blows through that by exponential numbers. So yeah, we're in ground zero. This is where you find high grade uranium, and there's so much ground to be explored. The perimeter of the basin is still pretty open. I mean, it hasn't had a ton of work over the last 4 or 5 decades. So the last couple decades, it's opened up since we've had some discoveries on the perimeter of the basin outside of the sandstone cover. And that's one of the reasons why we're so optimistic and why others are too.
Alex, thanks for being here. I'm going to wish you Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year. But I know we're probably going to have you on in not too distant future, right when the holidays are done, because you guys are going to be building the roads, like saying, going to get ready for drilling. So I'm assuming we're going to see you, and everybody else is going to see you back here in January again, correct?
Absolutely. What I'd love to do is once we announce the drills are mobbed or that they're turning, it'd be great to get on and maybe get into some details about what we're targeting,
right?
Why we're targeting it. It's all really good stuff.
Alex, if you really want to impress me, you'll be standing out there in the middle of East Preston in Saskatchewan in mid-January, right along with the team.
Listen, I'm not a big fan of cold weather. I'm going to admit that.
Either am I. I'm Greek, so that's why
listen, then number 2 here. The last thing that the geologists and the crew want is some guy from Vancouver showing up, freezing his butt off out there in the tundra. So they have to babysit me. It's not going to happen. I won't put that on them.
Well, if I was out there, it'd be after 15 minutes, like, oh my goodness, we got to transport the Greek guy back to the hotel. So I delayed the whole project. So I'm right there with you. But that's why I say that tongue in cheek.
Right.
Look, you've set it up great. Azincourt set up great, and it's going to start off 2023 right out of the gate. And I can't wait to have you back, my friend. But till then, to you, the family, the team, happy holidays, happy New Year, all of it.
Appreciate that. Same to you. And we've been quiet for several months for good reason. We're not going to be so quiet over the next 5 or 6. So
look, this is the quiet before the storm, right? You have to kind of go into stealth mode, get this all settled. It's done. Let the games begin, my friend. Can't wait to have you back.
Appreciate it, George. Thanks so much, and happy holidays. Merry Christmas to you and your crew. Thank you.
Thank you, my man. For everybody at home, you've been watching or you've been listening by podcast on Spotify, Google, Apple, your favorite podcast platform. To Alex Klenman, he's CEO of Azincourt Energy, trades in Canada under AAZ. For friends in the US, AZURF. For those new to the story, and you get more and more bullish on nuclear, which means you're getting more and more bullish on uranium. You see what Azincourt's got in terms of, a great project, cash in the bank, and the action's ready to go, and you want to do more due diligence. Get to the company's profile page on Agoracom, because we know sometimes, especially when it comes to uranium, which is becoming, has been just picked up over the last couple of years. Before that, you didn't see a lot of it, and you may not understand what happens around uranium. We've got it all neatly laid out for you in a great profile page, so you get a good 1,000-foot view. And then once you got that under your wing, head over to the Azincourt website, do deep dive due diligence. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day. See you next time. Hey guys, the video's over, but don't forget to help your company by liking it and even leaving a comment below. And then don't forget to help yourself by subscribing to our YouTube channel so you never miss another great Agoracom small cap video.